Alright folks, today we're talking about the new Zhiyun Weebill S Firmware 2.01. The firmware has been out for a couple of days, but I did not know anything about it. But someone DM'd me and said, hey Pete, what do you think about the new firmware for the Weebill S? And I will say, this time Zhiyun has given us a really good firmware. So let's take a closer look at what we got in the new Weebill S Firmware 2.01. Alright, as I said, we're going to talk about the new firmware and what Zhiyun has given us, and has it improved from the previous ones that we know. First, let's take a look at what we actually get in firmware 2.01. So, the first thing that Zhiyun says, they had solved some shaking problems after updating the gimbal with smaller cameras. And yes, when I look through the comment section of the last video of firmware 1.99, there was a lot of people who had issues when updating the gimbal. It was vibrating, and even though after auto-tuning it was still vibrating, getting vibrators from different kind of motors. And others didn't have any issues, it just worked fine. I have to say, it wasn't the best firmware update. I did go back to 1.96 on my old gimbal. On this one I could keep it on 1.99. But now we got 2.01 in both of these gimbals, and they work perfectly. When you updated it, they will go back to the default parameters. There's also a note down here in the bottom that say, note, parameters will be default after firmware update. Use autotune to be automatically adapted to the optimized parameters. But what they're actually saying is, once you updated the gimbal, autotune it to get it optimized. So I just updated this gimbal, and as you can see, if we go into the custom settings, it says 16, 32 and 37, and that is the default parameters for this Weebill S. And the weird thing is, when you auto-tune it, let me just auto-tune it, there we go, you will get the same parameters if you're working with a smaller setup, as we do right here. It's not the heaviest setup. So let's see if it's changed. No, 16, 32 and 37. So that is pretty weird, but the good thing about it is that if we take the tilt motor and raise the parameters to about 40, normally this would give us shake on the previous ones, and as you can see, we're putting force on the tilt motor and we do not have any shake. Let me put mid follow mode. There we go. There are no shakes of whatsoever coming from this motor. And if you notice one thing, we don't have a lens support on. That was something we needed for 1.99, 1.997, 98. A lot of these firmwares, you needed the lens support not to have any shake at all. But now you can use it without the lens support on smaller setups. As soon as I put my heavy lens on, the 10 to 25, which is on that camera, I will get camera shake after updating it without the lens support. But as soon as I add the lens support, we do not have any problems of whatsoever. It just works fine. So you can beef up the settings on the gimbal with firmware 2.01. It was not possible on the previous ones. So that is really good. Let's see what else we got. So the next thing they say, the gimbal will be in PF mode after auto-tune. And yes, that has been a problem with some of the firmwares, that once you auto-tune the gimbal, it would be in lock mode. So you had to just slide this up and down to get it in pan follow mode. Now when you update the gimbal to 2.01, it will be in pan follow mode, which is great. Not a big deal, but it's great they've done it. And the last thing they say here is that fixed other known bugs. And that can be a million things, but I will say what they have done is really good because it works very, very well. And with a brand new gimbal, this one is brand new. I just took it to use a month ago or something like that, and this old one here, beat up Weebill S, also got 2.01 in it, and it works just as great as this one does. So no difference if you got an old or new Weebill S with this firmware. So I'll just say great job, Zhiyun. You nailed it with this one, and hopefully we can stick with this firmware for a long time, because I don't have any need to update my gimbal after I got this firmware right here. But of course, if a new one comes out, I will test it out and give you my opinion about it. But for now, I will stick with 2.01. All right, let me just show you when I test these gimbals. I do some roll tests and stuff like that if I don't go out and shoot with it, and I don't go out today. So what I do is I put it in follow mode, and now we have the settings. Let me just change the settings to my custom settings. There we go. Been changing the settings lately a bit, and this one we'll put to 50. So 40, 45 and 50. And let's see what it does when we roll around with it. So I put it in follow mode, and then I try to put the motors in some of its auto position. Now we're rolling with the roll motor. You can see, there we go. And what I'm trying to see, I'm trying to hear if I can hear any noise and feel on the motors if I get any vibrations. Normally you can also feel the vibrations in the actual handle here. But a good thing is just try to go up and down and see what can we get. That's not a good position there, but just put it back there. As you can see. Yeah, so, and that is with my custom settings, and it works perfectly. I don't get any shake when I put it down. Sometimes when you put the gimbal down, it shakes a bit, and it will give the gimbal some extra shake and making the motors vibrate. And again, without the lens support on. So it's great that we now can auto tune it if you don't want to mess with the settings. And of course, if you want my settings, you can always download them. In the description, there's a download link where you can get my custom settings. All right, guys, that is it. The Weebill S Firmware 2.01. Go take your Weebill S, update it. It is recommended by me. I think it's a really good update that they came with this time. And of course, if this is the first time you're here, remember to subscribe if you want to learn more about filmmaking with motion. And lastly, stay creative and stay safe. And if you can, go out and shoot some dope videos. See you next time. Bye.